There you go. Go away. Okay, gold thing, go away. Go away, gold thing. That is not going away. The fuck?
It does go away eventually, the thing that you shared at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to set a goal. There it is, it's set. All right, now it's gone. Okay. All right, let's close this down. All right. So hello. We're on a new section today. Yay, new section. The new section's called The American Mind. Underneath that, it says, Frankenstein's need for a servant was an expression of his diseased ego. So he created a demented, ugly creature, pathologically strong and huge. All right, let's get into this. Dear Greg, and it's a friend of the author. That's who Greg is. We don't know too much about Greg. All we know is that they send him a letter. Here we go. Dear Greg, the breakdown of establishment conditioning usually occurs first at the university level. Students refuse to accept the lie that our exploitation of the world's peoples is actually beneficial to them. They begin to refuse their share of the spoils. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale left the campus to form the Black Panther Party. The students of the Democratic Society gave birth to the Weathermen. The rise of social political institutions to their present form of complexities was not the result of chance. The cooperation, the university, the unions, the mass media, the foundations, the associations, the courts, the prisons, the army, police, national and international, informed, uninformed, and disguised, uniformed and disguised. From their beginnings, they were formulated as enforcers of state centralism, an explanation forced on the history of all major socioeconomic institutions.
That said, an examination focused
on this history of all the major socio-political institutions of the United States, a study in the genetics of hierarchies, which certainly uncover the totally economic motive underlying the foundation of these institutions. For my purpose, I would broadly divide the major social political institutions into two classes. One designed by the state to move people into certain actions, and other to encourage, curtail, or completely deny.
discourage, not encourage.
Thank you. Completely deny certain other actions. The unintelligible vastness of these institutions makes it seem impossible that they could be owned and operated by the relatively small number of men. But the truth of this can be demonstrated by the documented evidence and irrefutable case studies. The modern industrial corporative, city-based states could never function at all without hierarchical control and the acceptance by the people of the controlling hierarchies. Quote, prior conditioning, end quote. Of course, the, quote, effects of ambiguous self-negation inbred since childhood, of course, again, certainly, quote, the pervasive nihilism of capitalist men, but these are simply, quote, effects. Western civilization is dying because it's tied into an economic system that was decadent 100 years ago. This system was certainly the calculated creation of a specific minority class. The rise of the manufacturing class was not spontaneous. It is perpetuated beyond the stage of decadence, in spite of fit and outrageous disorder. Its seemingly remarkable ability to return from crisis is not proof of natural durability. Rather, it is proof of a destructive will to power at any cost. Frankenstein's needs for a servant was an expression of his diseased ego, as we read before. He created a huge, pathologically strong, demented, ugly creature. He censored the beast actively by making him unintelligent. I wonder who the monster is in this case. He erected institutions flexible enough to keep the giant working, but rigid enough to forestall any growth of his mental facilities. A brain was grudgingly attached to the beast to provide a way for it to act. The beast worked and fought the enemies of his creator. The beast was content to watch the creator flourish. He lived through his creator. And then he finally saw him he finally saw himself as he was. He went mad. The corporations, the foundation, the association, the mass media, the state-controlled unions, the universities and the primary schools are all designed to move people into very specifically pre-ordered and monitored actions. The actual monitoring is done by the broader sediment of the stratified slave state, but the pre-ordering is done by the 0.1%, the ruling class, the governing elite of the corporative arrangement. The careful observer can see immediately how the guiding instructions are held together by red tape and rubber bands so that they can be very flexible when necessary. The corporations, flea markets, and mass media are relatively new techniques of control, as are the institutional foundations and most of the association. The foundations, whether family or corporate, are tax-exempt financial mechanisms, ostensibly established for altruistic influences in the fields of art and culture generally. They subsidize scientific research, higher education, educational TV, etc. The Rockefellers alone controlled 13 such foundations, through which they also controlled the oil holdings of 90 to 100 nations in the developing world countries, mainly holdings variously eliminated in value from 10
Estimated.
a value from 10 to 14 billion dollars. Similar foundations are controlled by the Fords, Kellogg's, and the Carnegies, etc., etc. When the institutional businesses interests of this
International.
of these families' financial institutions are threatened, the quote tax supported international policies are activated. After the police. After the CIA fails, the special forces are called upon. When necessary, the Marine Corps and the infantry intervene. And that was the end of that one. American justice. For their freedom to prey on the world's people, whatever the cost in blood. Another, Dear Greg.
I can help read too.
I'm sorry, I had to go check something. Ugh. Okay, here we go. Dear Greg, in order for capitalism to continue to rule in any action that threatens the right of a few individuals to own and control public property must be prohibited and curtailed, whatever the cost in resources. The international wing of the repressive institution has spent $1.5 trillion since World War II. Whatever the cost in blood. My Augusta, Georgia, Kent State, the Panther trials, the frame-up of Angela Davis, the national repressive institutions, police, National Guard, armies, etc., are no less determined. The mayors that curse the rioters and the looters, Mayor Daley of Chicago, has ordered them similarly, I can't say that word, executed in the streets, ignoring the fact that their bosses have looted the world. It refuses to make any argument with statistics compiled by the institutions and associations that I indicate. Indict. That I indict? What is indict? What do you mean?
Don't know.
Indict. Is that like dictated? Indict. The hell? Dee-doo. This is why I have to look up things. Because INDICT.
Indict.
Oh, it's indict. Okay, I indict, which is formally accused of or charged with serious crime. So, indict. So it says, I refuse to make any argument with statistics compiled by the institutions and associations that I, indict. Yet it is true that even official figures prove the case against capitalism. The Federal Bureau of Investigation compiles and indexes almost all information on crime in the United States. I have the figures as it states them right here. Vital statistics, FBI crime reports, property crime, 80% of the total in 1969. 28% of these crimes occurred in the undeveloped communities. Since 1960s, the number of men and women prisoners in state or federal penitentiaries has fluctuated slightly around the 250,000 mark. This statistic concealed the living reality. This is my 11th year of being shoveled into every major prison in the most populous state in the nation and the largest prison system in the world. What I have seen in these 11 years is the living situation. The experience is quite different from the columns of figures neatly arranged to give the impression of well-studied, detached, scientific, and calculated analysis. Hidden are the facts that at each institution I've been in, 30 to sometimes 40% of those held are black people. And every one of the many thousands I've encountered was from the working or the lumpen proletarian class. There may be a few exceptions, but I simply have not met any of them in my 11 years, where I am confined now in San Quentin Prison, California, awaiting trial for 2 alleged crimes. I'm going to get to that. Convictions on either of which would subjugate my lungs to the prison gas treatment. There are 17 cells in what is euphemistically, is that right? Euphemistically called, quote, the adjustment centers, but is far more accurately known as the whole. All right. The author was under indictment for 2 counts, first-degree murder and assault on a non-inmate causing death, unaliving, which under section 4, it says 4500 of the California Penal Code automatically involves a sentence of death upon conviction. All right, back to it. Adjustment centers. All right. All right, the whole. The AC in San Quentin and Quentin's triple maximum security, and all of these cells are filled, 11 of them, with black men, every one of them without exceptions from the working class. I've been arrested, interrogated, or investigated more times than I can care to count. I have learned 10 times more about the process than most expert single groups of inquisitors. From the first moment I'm brought into this scenario, I attempted to establish control over the exchanges that will take place between myself and my captors. Depending on the situation, one learns to feign either indignation, surprise, idiocy, or fear. What is that? Idiocy? Is that idiocy?
Probably.
Yeah. You don't know?
Oh no, I'm not reading along.
Hold on, right back. All right. Okay, hopefully that's it. That is it. Sorry, my bad, everybody. Idiocy, to fear or fear. At times, the peasant philosopher face will work. I don't think I am an exception to all, as most black people learn by age 15 how to handle the the cretins who hire out as guns for the privilege. There is only one type of inquisitional. I can't say this word. Lots of words.
I'm trying to find it.
I think I got it. No, I don't. Do I?
What page are we on?
99.
Okay, so I'm on the right page. Can you repeat what you were reading so I can find it?
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences down from the top. I think I got it.
Inquisition.
Inquisitional. All right. Wait. Let me make sure.
No, you're right. It's inquisitional.
Yeah. Just want to make sure I got the correct definition, though. Like an inquisitor. All right. Inquisitors are a person that makes inquiries, especially one seen to be excessively harsh or searching. Okay, let me redo all this. At times, the present philosopher face will work. I don't think I am an exception at all to most black, as most black people learn from age 15 how to handle a cretin who hire out as guns for the privilege. There is only one type of inquisitional situation that I personally cannot control. The seasons that begin with violence.
Sessions.
Huh?
Sessions.
The sessions that begin with violence. In those cases, guile fails, and
Guile.
it's guile. Guile fails, and black people learn to fight multiple opponents while handcuffed, or at least learn how to protect the groin area. I simply have never managed to develop a technique against 9 armed men who are fascinated with damaging my private parts, but I am still learning. Quote, all black people, wherever they are, wherever their crimes, even crimes against other black people, are political prisoners because the system has dealt with them differently than with whites. Whitey gets the benefit of every law, every loophole, and the benefit of being judged by his peers, other white people. Black people don't get the benefit of any such jury trial by peers. Such a trial is almost a cinch to result in the conviction of a black person, and it's a conscious political decision that black people don't have those benefits. Howard Marr Jr., attorney official, quote, of the court, but not for the court. He is in a position to know he is honest, black, and dedicated enough to tell. The purpose of the chief repressive institution within the totalitarian capitalist state is clearly to discourage and prohibit certain activities, and prohibitions are aimed at every distinctly defined sectors of the class and race. Sensitized society. Race-sensitized society. Yeah. The ultimate expression of law is not. I hate when they do the dash thing. Order. It's prisons. It's prison. There are hundreds upon hundreds.
It means a longer than normal pause, is what it means.
Oh, okay. So
it means that when you read it.
Mm-hmm. So it's the ultimate expression of law is not order. It's prison. Like that?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. There are hundreds upon hundreds of prisons and thousands upon thousands of laws. Yet there is no social order, no social pace. Anglo-Saxon bourgeoisie law is tied firmly into economics. One can even pick that out of those firmly into economics. One can even pick that out of those vital statistics. Bourgeoisie law protects property relations and not social relations. The culture traits of capitalism, of a capitalist society that is also tend to check activity. Individualism's artificial politeness juxtaposed to the aloof rudeness and the rush to learn, quote, how to instead of what is, quote unquote, are secondary, really, and intended for those mild cases, groups that require preventative measures only. Yeah, I said that right. The law and everything that interlocks with it was constructed for poor, desperate people like me. Jonathan, my young brother, understood this point perfectly. The purport of the raid on the Marin County Courthouse was more significant by far than its calculable effects. I knew him well, since he was still since he was and still is my alter ego. He went to liberate and to educate with aggressive and free action. He knew that as he proceeded in liberating, there would be more action. He wasn't a speech maker, and neither am I. Escape from the myth, the hoax, by moving people into action against the terror of the state. Counterterrorism is the real significance of the August 7th affair. To Jonathan, the striking exposure was, quote, audacity and more audacity. Theory and practice, strategy and tactics were based in his mind on actual confrontation within this particular historical development. He must have calculated that focal army activity that was hidden and nameless, operating where the objective conditions for revolutions already existed and had existed for a dozen decades, would survive and grow if at the same time that Black Panther political apparatus continued to develop its autonomous infrastructure. Proof of his theory was built right into the action. 5 desperate men were offered arms as a means to freedom. 3 took them. Proof of the role of law within the totalitarian authoritarian relationship was also built into the action. In a fit of reckless, mindless gunfire, 100 automated goons shot through the bodies of the judge, district attorney, and 3 female non-combatants to reestablish control over all activities. To prevent certain actions, no cost in blood is too high. It would seem that so much free fire would be difficult to explain, but it is not. Freedoms are invariably being protected with this gunfire. Freedom must then be interpreted 1,000 separate ways, but it actually comes down to freedom for a few families and their friends, freedom to prey upon the world. Acceptance of enslavement is deeply buried in the pathogenic character type of capitalism. It is a result of the sense of dread and anxiety, which is the lot of all men under capitalist rules. Compulsive behavior and disorder, obsessional belongings are actually made synonymous with
Not belongings,
Thank you.
just longings.
Okay. Quote, character in our disordered society. But to emphasize these conditions before examining the institutions from which they spring is to confuse effects with cause and further cloud the point of attack. So far, cultural analysis has established that the psychosis is so ingrained, the institutions so centralized, that what is needed is a total revolution. The armed struggle between the have-nots with their vanguards and their haves with their hirelings of, macabre freaks. What is macabre?
It's hirelings and macabre. It's
Let's find
macabre. But let's not use the FREAKS word.
Macabre. Disrupting or horrifying because of involvement with the depiction of death or an injury. All right. That lives through them. Civil war between at least these two sections of the population is the only oh my gosh, what is up with him today? Purgative.
Purgative, yeah.
Purgative. What is purgative?
Do you not know? He's just using a lot of real big words today.
Yeah, today it's big word day.
Purgative.
Purgative. Strongly laxative in effect. All right. Total revolution must be aimed at the purposeful and absolute destruction of the state and all present institutions. The destruction carried out by the so-called psychopaths and outsiders, whose only
Can we calm down on all the ableism
destructing
that George
destruction
Jackson
of the
did?
system. Thank you.
Communist.
Thank you. As organized massive violence directed at the source of thought control is the only realistic therapy. Analysis of the oppressed mentality and the psych. I have to say this so people understand what they're talking about. I have to say it because I don't know the second word to psychopathic personalities that occur from contact with the pre-verifications of American culture must be carefully integrated with the analysis of the source. Simply interpretations of the effect tends to calify. I think that's calify. It certainly promotes
Calcify.
Thank you. Quote, actions makes the front. End quote. One can quietly refuse to accept the construction of bourgeoisie culture, can reject himself, hate the self, and turn inward. By so doing, he accomplishes a form of individual revolt. But here again, we find another unconscious manifestation of the thing we hate, individualism. And now, I had no idea, attitudinal. What the fuck?
Exactly. Nailed it.
Attitudinal, what the hell's that mean?
It's got to do with attitude.
But it's specific.
So, right. Because it's an attitudinal instrumentality. So it's like an instrumentality of attitude.
Attitudinal, meaning relating to attitudes. Okay. Attitudinal instrumentally of bourgeoisie culture. We cannot escape. One simply cannot reject constrictions. Yeah. Without rejecting and putting to death the constrictor. An armed attacker cannot be ignored. Gandhi and the gurus were all abject fools. I would certainly be dead if, when critical flashpoints matured, I hadn't backed my rejection with blows. I would hate to have been a Vietnamese in my Lao without arms. I hate encounters like the one at my last court appearance on April 6, 1971. When the enemies who attacked me had all weapons. And then down here it says, on April 6, 1971, at a preliminary hearing of the Soledad brothers' murder trial, a bailiff persisted on jabbing George Jackson in the ribs, despite repeating warnings. Finally, Jackson wheeled around and decked the bailiff with a karate blow to his head. Nice. Sorry. I mean, damn. Oh, I mean, yay. I mean, oh, I mean, yay. Anyways. I would have hate to run into people who have Mike Hammer / J. Edgar Hoover complexities without being armed. My pledge is to arms. My enemies are institutions and any men with vested interest with them, even if that interest is only a wage. If revolution means civil war, I accept. And sooner begun, the sooner done. I don't think the enemy can be identified by more carefully than this. Further identification must be made in the process. I feel elated that my brother died with 2 guns in his hand. I am going to miss him and all the others. though death in our situation is only a release. I miss people intensely. I miss him intensely. But he and the others who sought freedom died at the throats of the principal repressive institutions of the enemy. They died making real attempts at freedom. I paraphrase Castro on the trial after Moncada. Quote, I warn you, gentlemen, I have only begun. Ooh, nice. And that's the end of that one. Towards the United Front. How long is this one, Joe? Is this one a long one?
No idea.
No. Huh. All right. I'm liking this. You doing okay? Mm-hmm. Towards the United Front. The new Unitarian and progressive current has sprung up in the movement, centering on political prisoners. How can this Unitarian conduct be developed further in the face of determined reassistance from the establishment? How can it be used to isolate reactionary elements? Unitarian conduct implies a, quote, search for those elements in our present situation which can become the basis for joint action. It involves a conscious reaching. It involves a conscious reaching for the relevant, the intenti.
Tante? I don't know.
I have no idea what that word is. Jesus. Today is the word day. It is the word day. It's okay. We only got 7 people in here. Doing great yesterday. Let's see. Entente. A friendly understanding or formal alliance between states or factions. Okay, entente. Let me sure. Hold on. Entente. And especially in our case, the reconcilable. I'm going to reread that sentence. Unitarian conduct implies a search for these elements on our presence in our present situation, which can become the basis for joint action. It involves a conscious reaching for the relevant, entente, and especially in our case, the reconcilable. Throughout the centralizing authoritarian process of American history, the ruling class have found it necessary to discourage and punish any genuine opposition to hierarchy. But there have always been individuals and groups who rejected the idea of two unequal societies existing one on top of the other. The men who placed themselves above the rest of society through guile, fortuitous outcome and circumstances, and sheer brutality had developed two principal institutions to deal with any and all serious disobedience: the prison and the institutionalized racism. There are more prisons of all categories in the United States than in all other countries of the world combined. At all times there are two-thirds of a million people or more confined to these prisons. Hundreds are destined to be legally executed. Thousands more quasi-legally. I'm guessing that could be. Other thousands.
Quasi-legally, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah. Other thousands will never again have any freedom of movement, barring a revolutionary change in all the institutions that combine to make up the order and things. See how he's drawing how the institutions have an interconnection to his situation in his prisons? Freaking amazing. One third of the million people have not seemed like a great number. May not seem like a great number compared with a total population of 200 million. However, compared with the 1 million who are responsible for all the affairs of men within the extended state, It constitutes a striking contrast. What I want to explore now are a few of the subtle elements that I have observed to be standing in the path of a much needed united front, non-sectarian, to effectively reverse these legitimized ripoffs. Prisons were not institutionalized on such a massive scale by the people. Most people realize that crime is simply the result of a grossly disproportionate distribution of wealth and privilege, a reflection of the present state of property relations. Ah, I love that. There are no wealthy men on death row, and so few in the general prison population that can be discounted them altogether. Imprisonment is
can discount them altogether.
Imprisonment is an aspect of class struggle from the outset. It is the creation of a closed society which attempts to isolate those individuals who disregard the structures and the hypercritical establishments, as well as those who attempt to challenge on the mass basis. Throughout its history, the United States has used its prison to suppress any organized efforts to challenge its legitimacy from its attempts to break up the early working men's benevolent association to the banning of the Communist Party during what I regard as a fascist takeover of this country, to the attempts to destroy the Black Panther Party. The hypocrisy of the American fascist forces it to conceal its attack on political offenders by the legal fiction of conspiracy law and highly sophisticated frame-ups. The masses must be
Sophisticated. Highly sophisticated.
Thank you. The masses must be taught to understand the true functions of prison. Why do they exist in such numbers? What is the real underlying economic motive of crime and the official definition of types of offenders or victims? The people must learn that when one, quote, offends, the totalitarian state in its patently not an offense against the people of that state, but an assault upon the privilege of the privileged few. Could anything be more ridiculous than the language of blatantly political indictments? Quote, the people of the state versus Angela Davis and Rachel McGee. Or, quote, the people of the state versus Bobby Seale and Erica Higgins. What people? Clearly, the hierarchy and armed minority. Educate the people in the real causes of economic crimes. We must be made to realize that even crimes of passion are psychosocial effects of an economic order that was decadent 100 years ago. All crimes can be traced to objective socioeconomic conditions, socially productive or counterproductive actively. In all cases, it is determined by the economic system, the method of economic organization. Quote, the people of the state versus John Doe is a tenuous as the clearly political frame-ups. It's like stating the people versus the people, man against himself. Official definitions of crimes are simply attempts by the establishment to suppress the forces of progress. Prisoners must be reached and made to understand that they are victims of social injustice. This is my task, working from within. While I'm here, my persuasion is that the war goes on no matter where one may find himself on bourgeoisie-dominated soil. The sheer numbers of prisoner class, and the terms of their existence make them a mighty reservoir of revolutionary potential. Working alone and from within, a steel enclosed society, there is very little that the people like myself can do to wake the restrained potential revolutionary outside the walls. That is part of the task of the quote prison movement. Quote, the prison movement, the August 7th movement, and all similar efforts educated the people in the legitimacy of the establishment power
Illegitimacy.
of the establishment power and hint at the ultimate goal of revolutionary consciousness at every level of struggle. The goal is always the same: the creation of an infrastructure capable of fielding a people's army. Each of us should understand that revolution is aggressive. The manipulators of the system cannot or will not meet our legitimate demands. Eventually, this will move us all into a violent encounter with the system. These are the terminal years of capitalism. And as we move into more and more basic challenges to its rule, history clearly forewarns us that when the prestige of power fails, a violent episode precedes its transformation. We can attempt to limit the scope and range of violence in revolution by mobilizing as many partisans as possible at every level of social economic life. But given the hold that the ruling class has on this country and its history of violence, nothing could be more certain than civil disorder, perhaps even civil war. I don't dread either. There are no good aspects of monopoly capital, so no reservations need to be recognized in its destruction. Monopoly capital is the enemy. It crushes the life force of all the people. It must be completely destroyed, or as quickly as possible, utterly, totally, ruthlessly, and relentlessly destroyed. With this as a common major goal, it would seem that anti-establishment forces would find little difficulties in developing common initiatives and methods consistent with the goals of mass society. Right, regretfully, this has not been the case. Only the prison movement has shown any promise of cutting across the ideological, racial, and cultural barricades that have blocked the natural coalitions of left-wing forces at all times in the past. So this movement must be used to provide an example for the partisans engaged at other levels of struggle. The issue involves an dialectic which the issues involve and the dialectic which flows from an understanding of a clear objective as existence of overt oppression could be the springboard for our entry into the tide of increasing worldwide socialist consciousness. In order to create united left, those aims is the defense of political prisoners and prisoners in general. We must renounce the idea that all participants must be of one mind and should work at the problem from a single party line or with a single party line or with a single method. The reverse of this is actually desirable. Quote, from all according to ability, end quote. Each partisan, I keep thinking that's not partisan for some reason, inside the vanguard elements should work at radicalizing in the area. What'd you say?
It's outside, not inside.
Outside the vanguard elements should work at radicalizing in the area of their natural environment, the places where they pursue their normal lives, when not attending the rallies and demonstrations. The vanguard element, organized party workers of all ideological persuasion, should go among the people, concentrate at the rallying point with consciousness raising strategies, promoting commitment, and providing concrete, clear, defined activities. The vanguard element must search out people who can and will contribute to the building of the commune, the infrastructure, with pen and clipboard in hand for those who aren't ready to take that step. A packet or pamphlets should be provided for their education. Again, this is the Maoist thing, like to go amongst the masses with pen and paper and to have observations and analysis. Again, this is the position. Yeah, I love this. And developing the vanguard element organically. All of this, of course, means that we are moving and on a mass level, not all in our separate directions, but firmly under the discipline and principled leadership of the vanguard Black Panther Communist Party. Quote, one simply cannot act without a head. Jesus, I hate burping. Democratic centralism is the only way to deal effectively with American ordeal. So that's something. My understanding of democratic centralism is that it's one vote, direct voting, and it starts from the bottom up. That's what I thoughts on that is. Maybe I should look that up. Let's look
That's
that
what
up.
I thought too.
Let's make sure. Make sure we're doing this right. I'm going to go democratic centralism according to Marx. Hold on, let me mute real quick so I can do that. All right, I'm back. Let's look this up. Let's be on point. Let's see if this will give me an on point. Democratic centralism is a Leninist organizational principle for most communist parties. Combined internal democratic debates, so debating with binding centralized action. So I think what it is, because I read this in one of the things that my comrades gave me, is like right there. It starts with like you see something, you debate it out, you come up with policies and programs, and then you implement the policies and programs once it's been voted on. Once it's been voted on, you implement it right away without haste. That's the most important part of that. Okay, hold on. Binding up central action. While it is based on a Marxist view of class struggle, Vladimir Lenin was the first to formalize and apply the Revolutionary Vanguard Party. Okay, hold on a second. The principles often summarized as freedoms of discussion, unity of action, and its key aspects include full internal democracy. All members are encouraged to participate in thorough discussions and debates all aspects of theory, strategies, and policies. Majority rule. When a decision is made through a vote, all members are bound by that decision. The minority must subordinate its views to the majority and its expect to uphold the new party line. Accountability. All direct bodies from top to bottom are elected at most and must periodically report their activities to their respective party organization. Subordination. Decisions made by higher party bodies are absolutely binding on lower bodies and individual members. This creates a clear hierarchy and ensures unified action. So the mass line. Okay, so that is a little bit of that. All right. Centralism is essentially the unity and effectiveness. It allows a party to act decisively and cohesively, which is necessary to challenge the higher centralized bourgeoisie state and avoid factionalism that could be exploited by their opponents. So that's during like a democratic revolution and stuff like that. So there we go. We got a little bit of that. The central committees of the People's Vanguard Party must make its presence felt throughout the various levels of the overall movement. With the example of unity in the prison movement, we can begin to break old behavioral patterns that have repeatedly allowed bourgeois capitalism, its imperialism, and fascism to triumph over the last several decades. We tap a massive potential reservoir of partisans for cadre work. We make it possible to begin to address one of the most complex psychosocial byproducts that economic man with his private enterprises has manufactured: racism. I did it. Since you taught me that, I'm trying to do it. Thank you, Joe. You taught me something. Again, you're always teaching me something. I've saved most of the critical barriers to our needs of unity for last. Racism is a matter of ingrained traditional attitudes, conditioned through institutions. For some, it is for some, it is as natural a reflex as breathing. The psychosocial effects of segregated environments, compounded by bitter class repression, have served in the past to render the progressive movement's almost total opponent, right? I can't say that word. I hate that.
I closed my eyes for a second. I
It's
see
okay.
the major obstacle.
Can't say the word.
Is that where you're at?
I'm in the second paragraph, last word in the second paragraph.
Impotent.
See, the OMP messes with me so bad. Impotent. There you go. And the major obstacles to the united left in this country is white racism. There are three categories of white racists: the overt, self-satisfied racist, who doesn't attempt to hide this antipathy? I can't do that. Antipathy. What is antipathy? Let's find out.
Go ahead and look it up. I think it's like not. Let's see. That's the overt. So I don't know. He doesn't hatred, disgust, or dislike. I don't know. It's something like that.
Yeah, deep-seated feeling or dislike, aversion. So you had it. The self-interdicting racist who harbors and nurtures racism in spite of his best efforts, and the unconscious racist who have no awareness of his racist preconceptions. I deny the existence of black racism outright. By flat, I deny it. Too much black blood has flown between the chasms that separates the races. It's fundamentally unfair to expect a black man to differentiate at a glance between the various kinds of white racists. What the apologists term black racism is either a healthy defense reflex on the part of a sincere black partisan who is attempting to deal with the realistic problems of survival and elevation, or the racism of the government's stooge organs. Stooge organs?
Stooge. Yes.
Yeah. As black partisans, what do they mean by black partisans? I wonder what they mean by black partisans.
Well, as black people that are partisans.
Yeah, hold on a second. I believe. I looked up what George Jackson means by it. What did you say? Refer to underground, unarmed, collective black revolutionaries committed to dismantling.
I said they do to just black people that are partisans.
It says black people. This is black partisans, according to George Jackson, to refer to an underground armed collective of black revolutionaries committed to dismantling what he saw as fascist, capitalist American empire. For George Jackson, the black partisan was not merely a soldier, but a highly conscious revolutionary dedicated to liberating all oppressed people. So it is a black revolutionist that's highly committed and disciplined in these things. So yeah. As black partisan,
I blocked that guy in case you look down.
Who was it? I don't care.
American communist.
American communist. A black partisan, we must recognize and allow for the existence of all three types of races. We must understand their presence as an effect of the system. It is the system that must be crushed, for it continues to manufacture new and deeper contradictions for both class and race. Once it is destroyed, we may be able to address the problems of racism at an even more basic level. But we must also combat racism while we are in the process of destroying the system. The self inter oh my gosh, interdicting
Perfect.
interdicting okay, the self-interdicting racist, no matter what his acquired convictions or ideology, will seldom be able to contribute with his actions in any really concrete way. His role in revolution, barring the change of basic character, will be minimal throughout. Let's find out what it means to be, where was that word at? Interdicting racist. Let's find out what that means.
We need to find out what the word interdicting is, and then we can figure out what a self-interdicting person would be.
According to Google, it's a misunderstanding of internalized racism. So I think
So it's a self-racist. It's an internalized racist.
internalized racism. And they might have
Yes.
updated the word since now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right, let me read it. The self-interdicting racist, no matter what his acquired conviction of ideology, will seldom be able to contribute with his actions in any really concrete way. His role in revolution, barring a change in basic character, will be minimal throughout. Whether the basic character of a man can be changed at all is still a question. But we have an intimacy, I can't say that word, of issues in questions.
Immediacy.
Immediacy. I can't say it. Immediacy is great. The perfect opportunity to test the validity of a materialist philosophy again, because we don't have to guess. We have the means to proof. The need for Unitarian conduct goes much deeper than the liberation of Angela, Bobby, Erica, McGee, Losati, Tangerina, right draft resistors, and now the undominable and fruitful James Carr. And down below it says, Angela Davis.
Indomitable and faithful James Carr.
Thank you. So Angela Davis, Bobby Seale, Eric Higgins, Rachel McGee, Los Sati, Del La Raza are the seven Chicanos who were acquitted in San Francisco of the charge of unaliving a police officer and who continue to be harassed by police. Reyes Tangerian is a Chicano leader imprisoned for his attempt to assert Mexicano-American ownership by right of treaty grant to large tracts of land in the Southwest. James Carr was with George Jackson during most of his years in prison. While on patrol, he reportedly attempted to come to George's assistance during
Parole.
the violent aftermath.
He's not on patrol.
What was it?
Sorry. Parole. He's
Parole.
on parole.
Thank you. While on parole, he reportedly attempted to come to George Jackson's assistance during the violent aftermath of the Soledad brothers hearing on April 6th. He was arrested and now faces the possibility to return to prison to complete his life sentence. Okay. Where did I stop? Okay. We have a fundamental strategy to be proved, tested and proved. The activity surrounding the protection of the liberation of people who fight for us is an important aspect of the struggle, but is important only if it provides new initiatives that redirect the advance the revolution under new progressive methods. There must be a collective redirection of the old guard, the factory and union agitator, with the campus activists who can counter the ill effects of fascism at its training site, and with the lumpen proletariat intellectuals who possess revolutionary scientific socialist attitudes to deal with the masses of street people already living outside of the system. They must work towards developing the unity of the pamphlet and the silent pistol. Black, brown, and white are all victims together. At the end of this massive collective struggle, we will uncover our new man. The unpredictable accumulation, culmination of the revolutionary process. He will be better equipped to wage a real struggle and permanent struggle after the revolution, the one for new relationship between man. Nice. After the revolution has failed, after the unaliving is done, the ruling class goes on about the business and making profits as usual. All right, the withdrawal. We got 20 minutes. Let's see how long this is.
I do not know how to pronounce that first word.
Me neither. Let me try it. Syllogism.
No, it's like syllogism.
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 Syllogism. Let's find out. The words are hitting hard today, everybody. Apologies for the words hitting hard today. Reading, this is still better, still easier to read than like, Wretched of the Earth. Wretched of the Earth needs to be read over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Syllogism.
Hey, we were good. Syllogism. We were right. Syllogism. You got it.
Awesome.
An instance of a form of reasoning in which a conclusion is drawn, rather validly or not. Form to
That's not
give
the
it.
definition on the book.
Is it right there?
It's right there. It's literally with the word.
Okay. An agreement with two premises on the conclusion.
An argument. That's why we keep having problems.
Okay, thank you. An argument with two premises and the conclusion, a logical scheme of a formal argument consisting of a major and minor premise and a conclusion which must logically be true if the premise are true. Merriam-Webster. You know what? I wish I can change my default to Merriam-Webster because I've heard that Merriam-Webster is much better because Merriam-Webster does update terminologies and words to fit the current conditions. That's what I'm hearing. All right, here we go. After revolution has failed, all questions must be centered on how a new revolutionary consciousness can be mobilized around the new set of class antagonisms that have been created by the authoritarian regime of terror, at which level a social, political, and economic life should begin our new attack. First, we, the Black Partisan, and their vanguard party, the old and new left alike, must concede that the workers' revolution and its vanguard parties have failed to deliver the promised changes in property relations and any of the institutions that support them. This must be conceded without bitterness, name-calling, or the intense rancor that is presently building. That is presently building. So basically what they're saying is the failures happen. Let's just not like get all in our fifis and our emotions. Let's actually look at this subjectively. Let's put our feelings aside for right now. And let's just be what it is. Let's look at the failures. Look at what we've done. Look at our non-failures. Let's come up with ways and let's not worry about whose fault, who did what, we are here now. Let's come up with a new type of strategies and tactics in order to be successful. Yes. There have to be 2 dispersions, 2 great wars, a dozen serious...
Hold on. You didn't start that sentence off right.
There have been 2 depressions, 2 great wars, a dozen serious recessions, a dozen brush wars, crisis after economic crisis. The mass psychosocial national cohesiveness has trembled on the brink of disruption and disintegration rapidly over the last 50 years, threatening to fly repeatedly over the last 50 years, threatening to fly apart from its own concentric inner dynamics. But after each crisis, it was allowed to reform itself. With each reforms, revolution became more remote. This is because the old left has failed to understand the true nature of fascism. We will never have a complete definition of fascism because it is in constant motion, showing a new... Wait, is this? No, the withdrawal, okay. Constant motion, showing a new face to fit any particular set of problems that arise to threaten the predominance and of the traditionalist capitalist ruling class. So even fascism itself is ever moving and in constant motion. That's why he says we will never have a complete definition of fascism because it is a constant motion, showing a new face to fit any particular sets of problems that arise to threaten the predominance of the traditionalist capitalist ruling class. But if one were forced for the sake of clarity to define in a word simple enough for all
No.
Okay, stop. But if one were forced to, for the sake of clarity, to define in a word simple enough for all.
To define it
in a word simple enough for all to understand, that word would be quote unquote reform. We could not make our definition more precise by adding...
We can make our definition.
Okay, we can make our definition more precise by adding the word, quote, economic. Economic reform, quote unquote, comes very close to a working definition of fascist motive forces. Such a definition may serve to clarify things even though it leaves a great deal unexplained. Each economic reform that perpetuates ruling class hegemony has to be disguised as a positive gain for the upthrusting masses. Disguised enters as a third stage of the emergency and development of the fascist state. The modern industrial fascist state has found it essential to disguise the opulence of its ruling class leisure existence by providing the lower classes with a mass consumers flea market of its own, to follow the sizable portions of the quote new state, to participate in this flea market. The ruling class has established currency control and minimum wage laws that mask the true nature of modern fascism. Reform, the closed economy, is only a new way for capitalism to protect the developed fascism. After the German SS agents or Italian black shirts kicked in the door and herd Jewish people and communist partisans to death camps, after Peg Leg, White's Black Legion Terror, and the Guardians of the Republic, and their offsprings legitimize the FBI. In other words, after the fascists have succeeded in crushing the vanguard elements and the threat they pose is removed, the ruling class goes on about the business of making the profits as usual. Then under here says, probably the author is referring to the Guardians of Liberty and the anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant groups formed by ex-military officers and civil servants in New York in 1911. Among its founders was Nelson A. Miles, former Chief of Staff of the United States Army. The significance of the new fascist arrangement, quote unquote, lies in the fact that this business as usual is accompanied by concessions to the degenerate segment of the working class, with the aim of creating a buffer zone between the ruling class and the still potentially revolutionary segments of the lower classes. In our case, we give them white supremacy. We give them whiteness. There's a buffering between, yes, we call it the white aristocracy. Corporative ideas have reached their logical conclusions in the U.S. The U.S. corporate state has fought its way through crisis after crisis, establishing its ruling elites in every important institution, formed in partisanship with labor through its elites, erected the most massive network of protective agencies, replete with spies, technical and animal. And it sucks that they utilize animals as these things. I think it's animal abuse, honestly. To be found in any police state in the world. The violence of the ruling class of this country is the long process of its trend towards authoritarianism and its last and highest state, fascism, cannot be reviled, right? Reviled. Rivaled in its excesses by any other nation on earth today or in history. Hold on, let me see something. Okay, I'm going to finish this up. With each advancement in the authoritarian process and the strengthening of the ruling class control over the systems, there was a corresponding weakening of the people's and workers' movement. And intellectuals still argue rather America is a fascist country. This concern is typical of the American left's fight for reality from any truly extreme position. This is actually a manifestation of the authoritarian process seeping into its own psyche. At this stage, how can anyone question the existence of a fascist arrangement? Just consider the awesome centralization of power and the proven fact that the largest part of the gross national product is in the hands of a minute portion of the population. Minute. Yeah, thank you. Of course, the revolution has failed. Fascism has temporarily succeeded under the guise of reform. The only way we can destroy it is to refuse to compromise with the enemy state and its ruling class. Compromise were made in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. The old vanguard parties made gross strategic and tactical errors at the existential moment. The last revelation about oneself. Not many members of the old vanguard chose to risk their whole futures, their lives, in order to alter the conditions that Huey P. Newton described as destructive of life, quote unquote. Reformism was allowed. The more degenerate elements of the working class were the first to succumb. The vanguard party supported the capitalistic war adventures in World War II. Then they helped to promote the mass consumers market that followed that followed the close of the war, the flea markets that muted the workers' more genuine demands. Today, we are faced with a clearly different set of class antagonism, the complexities of a particularly refined fascist economic arrangement, where the controlling elites have co-opted large portions of the lowly working class. We have asked ourselves, when we ask ourselves, where will we attack the enemy state? We are answered. We are answered at the productive point. The next logical question is, with whom and what will we attack? Will we attack the fortified entrance of the productive and distributive system in a nation of short-sighted, contented, conservative workers? Obviously, the fascist movement is counter-revolution at its very center. Fascist reformism is a calculated response to classic scientific socialism approach to revolution through positive mobilization of the working classes. From its inception, the fascist arrangement has attempted to create the illusion of the mass society in which the traditional capitalist ruling class world would continue to play its leading role. A mass society that is not a mass society. A mass society of authoritarians whose short-term material interests are perfectly suited to the development of a perfect totalitarian state and centralized economy. The most precise definition of fascism involves the concept of scientific capitalism, quote unquote, or controlled capitalism, quote unquote. A sophisticated, totalitarian, quote unquote, learned response to the challenge of egalitarian scientific socialism. After its successful establishment in Spain, Portugal, Greece, South Africa, the United States of America, we were faced with the obvious question of how to raise a new consciousness. We were faced. Got one, two. Only like I not too much. We are faced with the task of raising a positive mobilization of the revolutionary consciousness in the mass, in a mass that has, quote, gone through a contra-positive authoritarian process. The new vanguard elements seem to agree that withdraw from the enemy state and its social, political, and economic life is the first step towards its destruction. The new vanguard elements seem to agree that the new revolutionary consciousness will develop in the struggles of withdrawal. However, after this point, agreements grow vague and is all but lost in the sea of contradictions. The contention turns to one primary question: the scope and range of violence within the revolutionary process. After the lengthy and clearly unnecessary logical battles that lay to rest at a direct approach to revolution by the white and black workers, we are now faced with equally unnecessary ideological battles over which of the various communal revolutionary culture approaches has the stronger revolutionary validity. The problem is compounded by the almost apolitical withdrawal of the growing Weathermen faction and their estranged allies on campus to organic food gardens and a life of schmecks, music, and drugs. Their Nietzscheism Hegelian withdrawal mimics the European historical experience of last 5 generations. In our equation, this must be considered the minor side of that word. Oh my gosh. Syllogism. Syllogism. Do I have it up still? Let's see if I got it up.
It's syllogism.
Syllogism. Such a fun word, right? No, come back.
Syllogism.
Syllogism. There it is. Seems as yet impossibly remote. On the other side of the equation, we have Huey Newton's concept of black communes set well within the huge population centers of the enemy state. This concept accepts any level of violence that will be necessary to enforce the demands of the people and workers. These communes will be tied to one another by a national and international vanguard party and joined with the world's other revolutionary societies. They are the obvious answers to all the theoretical and practical questions and problems about the American Revolution, a revolution that will be carried out principally by black people. The question I've asked myself over the years runs this way. Who has done the most of the dying, most of the work, most of the time in prison on Max Row? Who is hindmost? Is that right? Who is the hindmost in every aspect of social, political, and economic life? Who has the least short-term interest and no interest at all in the survival of the present state? In this condition, how could we believe in the possibility of a new generation, an enlightened fascist who would dismantle the basis of their hierarchies? How many Americans are willing to accept the physical destruction of such parts of their farmland so that the rest of the land and the world might survive in good health? How can black industrial workers be induced to carry out a valid workers' revolutionary policy? What and who will guide him? The commune, the central city-wide revolutionary culture. But who will build the commune that will guide the people into significant challenge to property rights? Carving out the commune in the central cities will involve claiming certain rights as our own, out front, rights that have not been respected to now. Property rights. It will involve building a political, social, and economic infrastructure capable of filling the vacuum that has been left by the establishment ruling class and punishing the occupied forces of the enemy culture from our midst. The implementation of this new social, political, and economic program will feed and comfort all the people on at least a subsistent level and force the quote-unquote owners of the enemy bourgeoisie culture either to tie their whole fortunes to the communes and the people, or to leave the land, the tools, and the market behind. If he will not leave voluntarily, we will expel him. We will use the shotgun and the anti-tank rocket launchers. Who will build on the idea that begins with force? The Vanguard Party is now nationwide. But vanguard parties cannot build revolution alone, nor can the Vanguard Party expect full party line agreement before it moves in the direction of the people. Revolution is illegal. It's against the law. It's prohibited. It will not be allowed. It is clear that the revolutionary is a lawless man. The law and the lumpen will make the revolution. The people, the workers, will adopt it. This must be the new order of things after the fact of the modern industrial fascist state. I'm going to say black people, but it has the S. In black people, the authoritarian traits are mainly the effects of terrorism that lack of intellectual stimulation. The communal experience will redeem them. At present, the black worker is simply choosing the less dangerous and complicated strategies of survival. All classes and all people are subject to the authoritarian syndrome. It says, what is this word? Atavistic? Atavistic? Atavistic?
Atavistic?
What does that mean?
Don't know.
I was doing so well. One of these days, I will know. Just kidding. I will never know all the words. Who will? There's so many words. How many words do you think exist?
I don't know, but I don't know, but worth looking up afterwards.
It's atavistic, relating to a character by reversion to something ancient or ancestral. Okay, it is an atavistic overthrow of the herd instinct, but it requires only the proper trauma, the proper sociological set of circumstances. Of circumstantial pressures to bring forth a revolutionary conscience. Racism enters on the psychosocial level in the form of morbid traditional fear of both black people and revolutions. The resentment of black people and conscious of or unconscious tendencies to mete out pain to black people throughout the history of America's slave system all came into focus when black people began to move from south to the north and from countryside to city to compete with whites in industrial sectors and in general engage in status competition. Resentment, fear, insecurity, and the usual isolation that is patterned into every modern capitalist industrial society. The more complex the product, the greater the division of labor, the higher the pyramid and the broader its base, and the smaller the individual brick tends to feel, are multiplied by 10 when racism, race antagonism is also a factor. There is certainly no lack of evidence to prove the existence of an old and built-in character assassination of programmed racism. That class controls the nation, educational facilities, prints the newspaper and magazine that carries the little cartoons and omits or misrepresents us to death, has always served to distract and diffuse feelings of status deprivation suffered by the huge sectors just above the black one. Then also to account for the seemingly dual nature recognizable in the authoritarian personality, conformity, but also a strange latent destructiveness. Racism has always been employed as a pressure release for the psychopathic destructiveness. Don't know another word. Destructiveness evinced by a people historically processed to fear, to feel the need for the decision makers to hate freedom. The revolutionary is outlawed. The revolutionary is outlawed. The black revolutionary is quote unquote is a doomed man. All of the forces of counter-revolution stack up over his head. He's standing in the tank trap he has dug. He lives in the crosshairs. No one can understand the feeling of but himself. Quote, from the beginning of his revolutionary consciousness, he must use every device to stay alive. Violence is a force issue. It's incumbent on him. The very first political program have had to be defended with duels to the death. The children's breakfast program haven't been spared. The next round of commune building could cause the third great war of the century. We must build with the fingers of one hand wrapped around a gun, an anti-personnel weapon. We cannot leave the central city. This must be understood by the other revolutionary people if we are to move together to conclusive action. The war will be fought in the nerve centers of the nation. and the cities where Angela was finally captured as she was at work for the revolution, where Huey was found hidden and working by the government's propaganda apparatus. We cannot withdraw from the cities. In order to complete the revolutionary syllogism, the fascists must be forced to withdraw. And under cover of the guns which force their withdrawal, we will build the new black communes. In big, huge, bold letters, all in capital, all in oh my gosh, all in caps, blade in the throat of the communes, a blade in the throat of fascism. And we'll stop there. And we'll begin one of my favorite sections, fascism. Its most advanced forms is here in America. So we'll start there tomorrow. Very good thing to read on fascism. All right, what's up? Ooh, class wars now.
I was just here in case you wanted to talk about what we read.
Yeah. Does anybody want to come up and talk about it? It's very telling that fascism is it's not telling. It's just like he mentions that capitalism has a scientific nature that the ruling class utilizes in order to keep it going, in order to keep reforming it, rebuilding it, taking it from its essence of its destruction in its like crisis mode and trying to fix the crisis instead of getting rid of it and moving on to another thing. And how like fascism is ever developing and ever advancing itself, you know, and that we have to be ever observant of fascism itself and how its development and what it's utilizing too, because it's ever moving itself, you know.
Yeah, it attempts to keep things as the same as possible, but due to living in a very moving world, they cannot be completely stationary. So they look for ways to stay as close as possible to the current way of things. Yeah, I liked the book, but would best be talked about in Discord.
I don't know. Maybe. What's up, Lars?
I'm saying for like the criticisms I have, it would be best talked over in Discord.
Lars, what's up? What you want to add to this?
Hello.
Hello.
So yeah, I just wanted to add the later section about the communes. When I first read through this book, it felt kind of like a no-brainer once I read it, but I simply, probably because of the amount of indoctrination I've received, that seemed like a new pathway I haven't thought of before. It was like having colonies to kind of like supply as like the beating heart for the revolution at that time. And I just want to say, like, that was like, I kind of compare that to what we have now. I live in Indiana, and in this state, there's like, we have organizations that will do mutual aid, but like, it's not really about building communes. It's like kind of just almost like subsidizing. It's like subsidizing for the government almost, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And the communes can also be revolutionary liberated areas at the same sense that, with Mao's time, a little bit different, but kind of the same kind of concept of liberated areas. Like the communes are those parts, those like you said, that keeps the revolution going. And like you said too, mutual aid should be fortified, should be part of the communes for sure, but separate from the system, of course, and protected at the same time. You know, because
Yeah.
how are we going to distribute properly too, you know? Because mutual aid is not just getting people funds to be able to pay bills, but it's also like, hey, you know what? Mutual aid of labor. Let's go over and do this for this person. You know what I mean? So mutual aid can function in many different things, not just in a form of giving someone enough money to pay their bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also to like back to when you were like first reading it, and when you read it, it felt obvious, and you were wondering why it didn't cross your mind earlier. No, there's no such thing as common sense. That's why education is so important.
Agreed.
Agreed.
You don't have nothing to say, Joe? I love you. I'll be in there soon.
Love you too. Bye.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I had to add.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. And I think we do need to pay attention to like revolutionary action that's happening. And he talked about also how it's important for us. He mentioned slightly that we need to develop a left unity, a united front, and consolidate, because we all need to come together to be able to pursue a revolutionary action of liberation. You know, we need to have united fronts. You know what I mean? Because, and I love that like everything after the revolution will be worked out and be put to like 100%. We'll see, and then we'll know what to do too. Because again, like they continuously like. I feel like we can't be completely conscious because of the systems and because of media and social media. We're always subjected to become liberalized in a sense too, and be propagandized. That's why we have to continuously deconstruct, read books, continuously on this path, continuously with criticisms, continuously to struggle, to have these conversations, and to actually develop like actual objective like structures that actually help people. Like we got to continue to do that, because all of us can succumb to liberalism, can succumb to all these propaganda things, because that's what their point is to keep the bread and circus going, so that way we keep the capitalist machine going without knowing what we can do about it.
Yeah, this united front, the way I think of the united front is like it's like we are the snowball for the sort of like collectivization for all the, like our goal is to take the liberals into this snowball that we're building, and for this snowball to eventually fall down the hill and barrel into the bourgeoisie.
Yeah, and destroy the bourgeoisie utterly. Yes. An avalanche. We'll call it an avalanche. A snowball that turns into an avalanche, hopefully.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Do you have anything to say, Doodley, before I close it out?
No, much love. Take care.
All right, everybody. Let's see how much of this book. I don't know. It's probably gonna take a couple days. Yeah, I still have a lot. I still have a little more to go. So more from this, and then I will read Free the Land. Supposedly it's a book that helps me understand a little bit of what New Africa looks like in the southern regions. You know? So, all right, everybody.